Man, trying to keep up with the tech job market these days is like, I don't know, trying to predict the weather in a hurricane. One minute, it's all sunshine and rainbows, learn to code, make $1 million, and the next, you're caught in a downpour of layoffs and hiring freezes. So we're strapping on our rain boots and diving into some recent data to see what's really going on.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet, right? This is about people's livelihoods, their careers, their futures. We're seeing stories that really drive that home.
Speaking of driving it home, how about this? There's this computer science professor at UC Berkeley. And yeah, I mean, the UC Berkeley, the one everyone's trying to get into. So this professor is saying that even his students, the cream of the crop, are having a surprisingly tough time in this job market.
I know, right? It's kind of shocking when you think about it. I mean, Berkeley's practically a direct pipeline to Silicon Valley. If their grads are struggling, it makes you wonder what's happening to everyone else.
And it's not just this one professor's opinion either. This article we've got here from the United Daily News, it actually cites some pretty eye-opening data to back this up.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they're reporting that recruiting for new grads has taken a nosedive, like across the board all over the U.S. So is it a matter of too many grads, not enough jobs, or are companies looking for something different these days? And then there's this. The New York Federal Reserve, they found that a crazy 40%, almost half of recent grads, are actually underemployed.
Okay, underemployed. That's a word I feel like we hear a lot, but what does that actually mean for someone who's just starting out their career? Like, what does that look like?
So imagine this. You've spent years, right? You've put in the time, the effort, probably a ton of money to get your degree, and now you're stuck in a job that doesn't even come close to using your skills or your education. That's underemployment. A recipe for frustration, and probably a mountain of student loan debt.
And it's not just the new grads feeling the pressure either, right? I mean, we've all seen the headlines, tech layoffs left and right.
Yeah, it's been pretty brutal. Layoffs.fyi, they're saying it's at a 10-year high, which is, well, that's pretty alarming.
It's like a double whammy, right? Because
Yeah.
you've got all these experienced tech workers who are suddenly back on the job market, and they're often applying for the same entry-level roles as new grads.
Exactly. Talk about adding insult to injury. Right?
Yeah.
It's tough enough for new grads to break in, but now they're going up against people with years of experience, which just makes it even harder for them to get a foot in the door. It's a tough environment out there, that's for sure.
I read this one story in the article that really stuck with me, and it just shows you how well things have changed. So there's this former eBay employee, and get this, he's resorted to handing out resumes on the street outside of Google and Facebook. Can you imagine having to do that?
It's like something out of a movie, right?
Yeah.
But I think it really highlights just how competitive it's become. It wasn't that long ago that tech companies were practically begging for qualified candidates.
Yeah.
Now, even people with impressive resumes and years of experience are having to get creative, or maybe desperate is the right word, just to get noticed.
It really makes you wonder, is this tech downturn a sign of things to come for other industries too? Like, is this just the tip of the iceberg?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's hard to say for sure, but it does make you stop and think. I mean, if the tech industry, which has been booming for as long as we can remember, is going through these kinds of growing pains, what does that mean for other industries that maybe aren't as resilient or fast-paced?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So maybe it's not just about learning to code anymore. Maybe it's about being prepared for, well, anything, right?
Right. It's about being adaptable, about being willing to learn new things and pivot when you need to. Because the one constant in life, especially in the tech world, is change.
So instead of freaking out, maybe it's time to get proactive.
Exactly. Figure out what you're passionate about, what you're good at, and then go out there and make it happen. Easier said than done, I know. But hey, that's what we're here to talk about.
And that's what we're going to dive into a little deeper after the break.
It's all about being adaptable and ready for whatever comes your way, you know? Like, how can you take control of your own career, especially in a field that changes as fast as tech?
Okay, so let's get practical here. Let's say you're a student listening to this and you're thinking, wait, so you're telling me my computer science degree might not be a golden ticket anymore? What's the game plan? What should students be focusing on if they want to build a successful career in tech, even if things are a little shaky right now?
First things first, don't freak out. We're not saying a tech career is a bad idea, not at all. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows either. You know what I mean? The name of the game now is being prepared and being like super intentional about what you're learning and the skills you're building.
So where do you even start with that? It's not like there's a roadmap for how to navigate a tech downturn.
True, but there are definitely things you can do to give yourself an edge. Like, talk to people who are actually doing the jobs you think you might want. Don't just rely on those online job descriptions, because let's be real, those can be super vague. Get out there, go to industry events, use LinkedIn, whatever it takes.
It's like networking, but on steroids, right?
Yeah, totally. And don't be afraid to just reach out to people for what they call informational interviews. Basically, it's just picking someone's brain about their career path, what their day-to-day looks like, the skills they use, what they wish they'd known when they were starting out.
Oh, like those coffee chat things I've heard about?
Exactly. It's all about getting that insider perspective. And you never know, it might even lead to an opportunity you wouldn't have found otherwise. And while you're at it, don't be afraid to show off your passion, your drive, your willingness to learn. Those things go a long way, especially in a competitive job market.
So it's not just about what you know, but who you know and how you present yourself.
100%. And speaking of what, let's talk skills. We've all heard the learn to code mantra, but is that enough anymore? Are there other areas students should be focusing on besides just being a coding whiz? It's funny you should say that because coding is important, sure, but it's almost like the bare minimum these days. I think companies are realizing that soft skills are just as important, if not more so, in the long run.
Soft skills, so like being able to communicate effectively, work well on a team, all that good stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff that makes you a good human to work with, basically. But also things like critical thinking, problem solving, being able to adapt to new situations. Those are all super valuable because let's be real, the tech landscape changes so fast, what's relevant today might be outdated tomorrow. So the key is to be a lifelong learner, always be curious, and always be willing to expand your skill set.
So it's not just about learning how to code, it's about learning how to learn, period.
Exactly. You got it. The tech world, it's all about being adaptable, being able to pick up new things quickly, and being okay with not having all the answers.
So even if you're not a student, even if you're already in the workforce, this idea of continuous learning, that applies to everyone, right? No matter what field you're in.
Oh, absolutely. I think what's happening in tech right now is like a wake-up call for all of us. No matter how secure you think your job is, the world is changing fast, and the best way to stay ahead of the curve is to never stop learning.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the U.S. job market, but this is a global issue, right? So let's zoom out a bit. Is what we're seeing in the U.S., is it happening everywhere else too?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's not an easy one to answer. But I do think the trends we're seeing in the U.S., things like automation, globalization, the shift towards a more digital economy, those are all having a ripple effect around the world.
So instead of just saying, oh yeah, the global job market is changing, which is kind of vague and unhelpful, how can we actually wrap our heads around this?
Well, one way is to compare and contrast what's happening in different regions.
Oh, okay. So pick a few countries and see how their tech job markets are doing compared to the U.S.
Exactly. For example, we could look at India. They've got a huge tech sector, right? Or China, or maybe even smaller countries like Estonia or Israel. They're known for being tech hubs. Are they seeing similar slowdowns in hiring? Are there certain skills that are more in demand there? What factors are shaping their job markets?
It's like we're playing detective, trying to piece together all these clues to see the bigger picture.
Kind of. And what's cool is that when we start comparing and contrasting, we might start to notice some interesting patterns, right? Things that can give us a better understanding of where things are headed globally.
It's like each of those countries is a different piece of the puzzle, and we're trying to figure out how they all fit together, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the more pieces we can put together, the clearer that picture becomes. And hopefully we can start to see where the opportunities are too. Because even in a changing job market, there are always opportunities.
So it's not about being afraid of the change. It's about being ready for it. About being, like you said before, adaptable.
100%. And I think that's what I want our listeners to take away from this deep dive. Yeah, the tech job market, it's a little crazy right now. There's no denying that. But it's not all doom and gloom either. If you're smart, if you're proactive, if you're willing to learn and adapt, you can absolutely build a successful career in tech.
So don't hit that panic button just yet.
Definitely not. In fact, maybe it's time to hit the learn a new skill button or the network with someone awesome button. Those are the buttons that are going to pay off in the long run.
I love that. Okay, so to wrap things up for our listeners out there, whether you're just starting out in your career or you're a seasoned pro, what's the one thing you want them to remember from this deep dive?
You are in the driver's seat. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to do or what to learn. Go out there, do your research, talk to people, experiment, and build a career and a future that you're excited about.
Be a CEO of your own career. I like it.
There you go.
And on that note, that's a wrap on this deep dive into the ever-evolving world of the tech job market. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into a topic that's shaping our world. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and as always, thanks for listening.